Hello, my name is Sam Nambu, and my project is on California native medicinal plants, and it's titled Get to Know Your Environment. My faculty mentor is Dr. Shank, and I also had a lot of help from Professor Lawrence Yoon. So this presentation isn't actually the real presentation for my project. My project is meant to be viewed as an exhibition in the Fullerton Arboretum. So Harriet Bolden and Steve Adicona are curating an interactive exhibition at the Nature Center in the Fullerton Arboretum, which is a combination of many students' research and work to help build a relationship between the public and student body with the Arboretum and its collections. My project specifically consists of 6 technical illustrations of different medicinal California native plants, and it's meant to be viewed in person at the Arboretum. Each is accompanied by their respective research, and the idea is that you can look at the species that I have made illustrations of at the Arboretum and then venture out into the Arboretum itself and get to look at and interact with the species in nature and the species that are native to your environment in California. So why a project like this? A little background on myself. I'm a double major in biology and the visual arts, and this is a way that I can combine my passions and expertise into a project that I think really makes a difference and helps other people appreciate some of the things that I've really grown to appreciate in my schooling here. During lockdown in particular, I took a lot of hikes and walking, and I was also taking a botany class. And so I really gained some great appreciation for our native flora and just the plants that are around us that we don't really notice much every day. So this project is meant to help people make those same connections and really enjoy their environment and the incredible things that our native plants bring and have historically brought. So just a quick disclaimer, none of the information here is meant to be taken as medical advice. Obviously, if you're experiencing any form of illness or injury, you should seek medical help from a professional or doctor. The presentation is mainly documenting the historical use of California native plants and is meant to be an interactive and educational exhibit, not a guide to self-medication. But with that, I'll get right into it. So heteromelies are Buddhafolia, or California holly, or the Christmas berry. This is a plant which, fun fact, California holly is actually where the Hollywood gets its name from. So California holly flowers during the summer and begins developing its fruit in the autumn, which means the fruit persists through the winter. This fruiting season means that the berries are available to people when other food sources are scarce, and so it's historically been used as a food source during the winter. The berries are red and taste sort of like a powdery tart apple. They can be eaten raw, but are much better cooked. Historically, the main medical use for California holly is to treat women's conditions such as irregular menses. This treatment was prepared by mashing the flowers into a sort of poultice and then steeping that in hot water. The leaves of the plant were also steeped into a tea to treat similar conditions, and the Chumash people also used a leaf-based tea as a blood purifier or emetic. The Chumash people also use the California holly berries to treat ailments such as senile dementia. There may actually be some evidence in the active ingredients within this plant that suggests this could have been some form of effective treatment for dementia as well. But you can read more about that in the actual exhibition in the Arboretum. The second plant that I looked at was Sambucus nigra, or blue elderberry, or just elderberry for short. The flowers of the elderberry plant can be steeped into a tea that nearly all California Native Americans use to treat colds, flus, and fevers, as well as premenstrual syndrome and menstrual pain. The fresh berries of this plant can cause nausea, but when they're dried, they're very sweet and have a very pleasant flavor. The berries can also be used as a laxative and are an excellent form and source of vitamin C. The flowers of the elderberry have also been historically used to make shampoo by crushing them between your hands with some water. This was particularly meaningful to Native Americans to help control lice, which we will revisit later. with a different species as well. Next, we have Rus integrifolia, or the lemonade berry. So these berries are very tasty and can be eaten or sucked to alleviate thirst. The fruit is also ground and mixed into a watery drink that tastes similar to lemonade, much like the name would suggest. It's theorized that the Native Americans also used this species to alleviate colds and lung congestion by brewing the leaves into a tea. If you want to get a recipe for some of these berries, you can actually go over to the Arboretum, and I have a recipe detailed there in the research at the exhibit. Quercus lobata is the third species I decided to take a look at, or fourth, sorry. And most of the uses for this species are in the acorns. Historically, these were a vital food source during especially barren winters because they can be gathered and stored for consumption later. Though the acorns are susceptible to both weevils and mold, the acorns could be made into a soup or baked into a bread. Sometimes even Native Americans would make them into a porridge. Also, a thin acorn soup was used by the Chumash people to treat diarrhea and other fairly commonplace ailments. In the past, some Native Americans have used this infusion of powdered oak bark to treat arthritis, skin problems, and even burns. Salvia apiana, or white sage, is a plant that's been used, as I'm sure you've seen either in movies or even in some places now. People will burn it to either ward off evil spirits or invite friendly ones. But historically, the leaves of the white sage have a lot of uses. One of the most vital historical uses was as shampoo, specifically for the Luiseno and Cahuilla tribes who were within the missions and not allowed to bathe every day the way that they were accustomed to before going into the missions. And so it was vital that they had shampoo to wash their hair with to control lice because they weren't allowed to bathe very often. The leaves of the white sage plant were also used as a deodorant to mask the smell of human scent, especially during hunting. A drink made by steeping the leaves of Salvia apiana in cold water was used to treat sore throat, colds, flus. And the leaves have also been used to treat toothache, stomachache, asthma, and even to clean wounds. Sometimes the stems of young plants were used as a food source. And the last species I have here is Rhamnia coulteri, or the fried egg poppy. This fried egg poppy gets its common name from the flower, which is an enormous white poppy with a bright yellow center. Looks a lot like a fried egg, which is where it gets its name. So Rhamnia coulteri was used by the Chumash people for mostly skin conditions and irritations. To treat the skin irritants, the leaves and flowers were ground into a poultice and applied to the irritated portions of the skin for relief. The young stems and some parts of the flowers could also be steeped into a tea that was used to alleviate symptoms of food poisoning, such as cramps and stomach pain. This infusion also functions as a mild sedative, and Rhamnia coulteri was used as a source of hydration since the stalks of the plant actually contain a drinkable, watery substance. And finally, I'd just like to say a special thank you to Dr. Schenk and Lawrence Yoon for helping me all along the way of my project. I also had a lot of help from both Harriet Baldwin, Steve Adicona, and Greg Pongetti to help get my project exhibited in the Arboretum so that people can see it. It should be up right around when finals is over. And so you should definitely check it out. There's a lot more work that's in there than just mine, and it's a really great place. You can see all of the exhibits and interact with some of them, and then go out into the Arboretum and check out the collections there. And it's a great, great opportunity and outing. So thank you so much for listening.